Inboard and action!
Hi, welcome to Painting Lab. So things have been a bit busy around the Manor House recently with a feature film shooting in the tapestry room and the main hall right next to my studio. So I decided to go back to my old studio for a bit where I've more room to play and make a mess and build things for the third how to build a comparator mirror video in which I'm going to build a giant version of this device. Over the last 8 years on the channel you've seen me paint large and small, and we've discovered that the comparator mirror provides not only a way for anyone to unlock these skills.
It's awesome. It's more of opening up the thought process because the thinking is there, right?
But more latterly we've discovered that the mirror also allows me to show you advanced paint technique through my eyes.
It really helps to get the comparison.
Because you have a guide to help you. You still have to do it yourself. You're not just copying it exactly. You still have to compare between the mirror and your photo and make adjustments.
But despite all of that discovery, all of those breakthroughs, the question about the maximum size possible with the comparator mirror has been lingering around in the background. I've had hundreds of messages and emails from you wanting to know what the biggest size possible with this device is. So 10 years of work in collaboration with Tim Jenison and all of you lovely folks, give or take a few setbacks, but always with one untested assumption, that it was impossible to paint larger than a couple of foot square. I don't know if this experiment's going to work, but at the very least it's going to be an interesting failure. So, why not come along for the ride? Right then, to begin where we began our other how to make videos, link below this one, 2 planes at 90 degrees to each other and a mirror at an exact 45-degree angle slap bang in the middle of those 2 planes. Very simple in technical terms, but opening up the fascinating possibility that everyone might now be able to make realistic drawings and paintings through simple observations of colour and tone and shape without cheating or tracing anything. That is the most important thing here. However, this is really tricky to set up, and I suspect that building a giant version of this device is going to increase the margin for error even more, which is why I've had to be so strict with myself as I began to build this project up. So probably best to think about the space that I'm sitting in within this ancient old barn as a 3-walled cube. I can now be completely sure that this wall and this wall are straight and square and coincident with the only thing I could trust to be straight in this place, which is the floor. So it's really important to set all of that up so that I could be sure about where the absolute dead center point in this space is. And I did that by finding the middle space on the floor here and then measuring up half the distance of the height, which is also the width and the length. And that gives us a point right here where our mirror is going to sit. So perhaps you can see that what I've got here are 2 pieces of plywood, one here and one here, with this piece of board in the middle. I'm going to get rid of that in a minute. I put this here to give me an idea about how the mirror would end up presenting at 45 degrees to the wall behind me. So with this gone and with these ends rounded off, I'm then just slightly back from the very dead center of our entire device going to put a hinge so that we can achieve that perfect 45-degree angle, which is the essential ingredient in a comparator mirror setup. And once all of that's set up, it really should be just as simple as putting a piece of canvas down here to paint on, putting an image to paint from behind me, and then seeing when I climb up on the scaffold behind these 2 walls, if it's possible to look over the top of the mirror and make those simple, close comparisons that are possible with a smaller version of this device. So I know that previously on the channel I've said that there is a maximum size for comparator mirrors. The thinking shared by Tim Jenison and myself was that beyond this size it becomes impossible to view your source image in the mirror because the angle becomes too steep, too sheer. But for years, I've tried to think of a single practical reason why the physics of a comparator mirror should change at all as they get bigger, and I couldn't think of one. So what had I missed? Maybe I'd forgotten to scale something up. Maybe as comparator mirrors get bigger, what we really need is a bigger mirror. With my source image in place, I can now start repositioning my mirror. Handily, I've built this onto an old filing cabinet, which weighs a ton. It's not going anywhere, but it's also on wheels, so it means I can take it in and out of the setup as I need to. Even as I was making these adjustments, I didn't realize that I was only a few seconds away from proving to myself that larger comparator mirrors are possible.
Oh my God.
And that was the moment I looked into the mirror and saw that scaling that mirror up gives us enough of an eyeful to view the image at this larger size. The only issue being that I am standing in the way of that reflection. But don't forget that my workbench is behind the source plane, so all I need to do is clamber up there and take a slightly more elevated look over the top of the mirror. And yes, you can see as well as I can, I think. This mirror is reflecting our image so that it is coplanar to and coincident with the surface that we are about to paint on. So I've got to say, in technical terms, this is working perfectly. It's exactly the same as a smaller comparator setup. And scaling up that mirror, well, that was the missing link. My only concern is that I'm not going to be able to get full range of movement. But I can't take that for granted. The only way I can find out at this point is to stretch a canvas, get my paints and my modified brushes at the ready, and just give it a go. So I generally tend not to cover things on the channel that other people cover brilliantly on theirs, partly because I don't want to steal anyone else's thunder, and partly because I want Painting Lab to be about completely new approaches. In any case, stretching a canvas is a really important part of painting at scale. Maybe it'll inspire you to do something similar. So I'm going to show you how to do it here. You see that I put my canvas flat on the floor and then I put my stretcher on the back of it. And then I need to pull round each side of the canvas in the middle, not tight, but just taut. And by wrapping it around the edge of the stretcher frame and tapping it in place with a little upholstery tack, I can get everything set and square. Then I go around and I work on the corners and I tuck in a nice neat 45-degree pleat, and when that's in place I pull slightly tight again, doesn't need to be crazily tight, and I just tap in an upholstery tack. Now the little frayed edge at the side there is because my canvas wasn't quite big enough to wrap around that side. Not something I'd normally do, but it will work fine here. You'll have to forgive me. And then I can go around and tap in some extra tacks and flip the canvas over. As you can see, it's quite tight at this point, but I'm going to prime it with ordinary household emulsion paint. And when I do this, and when it dries, it will be like a drum, perfectly flat and smooth and ready to paint on. And all I need to do now is put my mirror rig back into place and kick my canvas into place. And finally, the time has come for me to stop hypothesizing and start painting. As you can see, I've modified my brushes and I've pre-mixed my paint in anticipation of all of this. And to begin with, this is pretty fun. I was relieved to have proven that giant comparator mirrors work at all, and painting with it was almost like a fun game. Pin the tail on the donkey? Or something like that. But the longer I went on, the more difficult and physically taxing things became. What this meant was that I was about as far away from my flow state as it's possible to be. So this is really a case of so near and so far. I can see the image perfectly in the mirror, it's just that I can't get over the top of it. So I'm going to see if I can climb around that side now and get a better look. That's going to have to be a better way of doing this. I think I'm going to get down again. Oh, well, instantly that feels a bit more natural. Let's just go for it. So I suppose because I was closer, I felt more at ease here. So almost as if I could fall into the image somehow, because this mirror is so big. But can you spot the glitch here? Okay, so my arm, as soon as I reach to paint, my arm gets in the way of the reflection. So I think the trick is to really exercise that game of looking, remembering, and then moving. So do you see what my problem is here? I can't seem to get out of the way enough to be able to paint comfortably, look. So I want to paint this lovely sort of lagoon blue section here. And well, if I dodge out of the way, I can just about manage to get some kind of comparison. Maybe if I go the other way. No, I'm still, seems as if whatever is in the center of the projection is destined to be blocked by me. I'm sort of trying to improvise around this awkwardness. You know, if I stand on the very far side of the mirror and I try to lean over and paint things at the other edge, that kind of works. You know, like this sort of thing. But as soon as I try to dive into the middle part of the painting, nah, not so much. Yeah, okay, let's talk about positives and negatives. So yes, I can see as much of the image as I need, but then when I move to act, to make a decision, a brush mark, I get in the way of the reflection, which is still just enough to build an image up. However, that doesn't make this whole process fluid, it doesn't make it effortless, and I want that to be the case because I want to use this bigger device to show you painting technique at this kind of scale in future videos. At the moment, that's just not going to be possible. There is really nothing else for it. I'm just going to have to sleep on it and see if I can make myself invisible. Well, it was a bit touch and go for a while. You know, I took a night to sleep on it before beginning to paint this morning. I was thinking that this was the only way of doing things, but then I had a bit of a brainwave. I think what I'm going to do is keep my source plane here, but make that wall my painting plane. So my canvas is going to be right here. That, I think, will solve the main issue of trying to get around this mirror, trying to get full access without blocking the reflection of the thing that you're trying to paint. So with a reasonable first third of this painting finished, I'm now going to take all of this to bits and reassemble it and see if I can solve this problem. this is really going to work. Well, it's been a long, hard slog to get here, but just trying to describe what I'm seeing, the way that I'm seeing it, which is in practice exactly the same as a smaller comparator mirror setup. It's just that this is so much bigger. I feel immersed in the image. Okay, let's get the canvas up. So this is it. We've done it, I think. Yesterday I thought all of this would end in disappointment. Today I'm painting to my heart's content. Losing myself in that relationship between my source image and the marks I'm making in response. And if that's not the essence of painting, I don't know what is. The worry that many experts have is that including a device, a piece of hardware in that eye to brain to brush connection corrupts it. It short-circuits it. And 10 years ago, I admit, I felt similarly. But all my tests, and this one is no exception, seem to expose the intimate connection between, say, the ripple of light on water and a constellation of brush marks made in response. Connecting vision to thought to action. So clearly, it almost needs no explanation. This setup is going to let us get further into painting than we ever have before on this channel. And I cannot wait. I have to say, this is blowing my mind a little bit. Is it possible to paint larger pictures with a comparator mirror? Is it possible to paint museum-sized pictures? Well, yes, it is, if you're prepared to scale everything up. And what's more, because I've got a much bigger mirror here, somehow I feel immersed in the process. This also represents a breakthrough in the way that we film things at Painting Lab. And perhaps you just caught a glimpse of why. With me painting on one side of the mirror, the reflection on the back side inverts the process. And because the mirror and the device are now so big, there's now plenty of room for somebody to film painting from my perspective without getting in my way at all. Just a thought for the future. We'll see if this works in practice in later videos. This painting, made from this source image using this giant comparator mirror setup, is actually going to be the backbone of challenge video number 3 in our 6-part challenge series. Over the next 12 months, you're going to be able to see me diving into each of these challenges myself. And of course, using a comparator mirror, often a little bit smaller than this, to show you how I stack brush marks up and how I make a realistic, recognizable looking painting by simple, well-observed measurements of tone and color and shape.
I think it will give a lot of people the tools to then be able to go and do their own painting once they've had a go, or once they've been able to complete a full painting with it. I think it's really clever. It seems so obvious, doesn't it? Why has no one done it before?
So if all of that sounds interesting to you, I would love you to get on board. And if you'd like to do that, you can go to paintinglab.com, join our community by signing up to the mailing list. And if you want to get your hands on a miniature version of the Comparator Mirror, the DIY booster kit that will let you build your own version of this device, all you need to do is email us at this address and we'll post one out to you for no more than the cost of postage and packing. One of our subscribers who's done just that is Sarah Steen. I featured Sarah's work on the channel a couple of videos back. But Sarah got back in touch with a second painting that she'd made. Bear in mind, as I said in the previous video, Sarah has almost no experience with a paintbrush. And this is her finished second picture. Seem familiar? Yeah, it's based on the same source image that I've been using today. In fact, I let Sarah set the agenda here because she's had such stunning results. Sarah, first of all, I congratulate you on the quality of your painting. But as I said before, and as I often say in this experiment, real success is that boost to confidence that often is so closely linked with the ability to draw and paint the world that we see around us as we see it and feel it. Really, my aim with the challenge series over the next 12 months is to provide you with compelling reasons to try again.
I think it's fascinating, and I can see how it will help so many people overcome their fear of not being able to paint like a realistic painter.
So if this is interesting to you, if it seems important, don't forget where you saw it first. And until next time, good luck with your attempts to draw and paint, perhaps even build your own giant comparator mirror. And I'll see you next time with our challenge series. Thanks for watching.